Hello and welcome to another Lord of the Rings Rise to War video. I am the player who plays as the King Under the Mountain, and today we are going to do a server update video for the new server that I'm in. It is a Rebuilding Glory server. There are some quite decent teams in it as well, to be honest, so it should be quite a good server. I'm going to try and talk through the teams, I'll go through the map, I'll go through battle reports. I'm going to try, because I didn't do a season start video or anything like that, hopefully it isn't too long, but I'm going to kind of show where I was at with tiles the first time I took them. I'm going to try and show probably a few more other things as well. I've got a little folder here in content, so we'll go into that afterwards. I'm going to talk through the new mechanics, which isn't just rebuilding glory. I'm going to talk through the new ring skill trees and that kind of thing. I'm going to talk through sweeping, I think, because that's pretty much all I'll be doing today. And I'm going to talk through the importance of certain tasks as a fellowship and probably having to work together more than probably we ever have done to make sure the entire fellowship progresses. So I'm going to start with the leaderboards, I think, because that makes the most sense today. I'll also show you my commanders and things, as I always do, but just show you the gear changes that I made in back end and what levels we're at and that kind of stuff. So, but we'll start with the leaderboards to start with. So, as always, Raven is at the top. Now, until probably about half an hour ago, I'd guess, I was in second place. I'm now in third. I would anticipate in the next 8 hours, I will probably drop to something like 9th or 10th. And the reason for this is, just to sort of explain briefly, that because I didn't quite complete one of my reputation tasks yesterday, my ring is locked and I can't get to 35 to get the extra points that I need from Dominance 5. So, but we'll go into that afterwards and the importance, but that's kind of why I think I'll slip down the leaderboard in the next however long. I think the affluence figure is quite an interesting figure. I'll probably do a separate video on kind of all of the conclusions to the new mechanics and things, but I'll talk through them while I'm on because they're quite important. So I think the affluence figure is quite interesting. I'll kind of show you the breakdown of that afterwards because a lot of mine's building based because we just there isn't any tiles simply when there is two big teams in a sort of server, so in a faction. So we'll see, or in a region as it might be. Let's go for first people to take a resource tile was Raven, of course. We were quite far down with the level 8s. Obviously, the tiles have now changed to levels 1 to 13. Level 8 is a 130. And with the way things are now, you have to take quite a few of them if you want to progress with 3 formations in your army. And we'll go into that as well as we go along. Level 9 tiles, again, Raven. I think we picked up a bit here, so we were 19th. We needed it for gathering because with the way the ring now works, you can't gather off each other's tiles until level 35. Law was extremely fast in first occupation of what is a level 10 tile, which used to be a 200. I think he sent a couple of armies at it, but to be fair, took it all right. And then everyone else was sort of 5 or 6 hours behind. Again, it was Raven. I was around 20th, and then I spent a long time waiting to get to a level 11, which is a 230. So I ended up 68th on the server. I waited a couple of days for that, just because I didn't really feel like I could afford the losses. There has been no merit on this server as of yet. You would expect that in a rebuilding glory server because you cannot get past the passes until after Chapter 4, so you can't fight anyone realistically, even if you wanted to. You could probably betray, but I'm not sure it counts as merit. So then we'll go into the farming, and this has been kind of static for a couple of days now, and it's surprised us. So we are back as TOBE. We were Kilt last season. We've changed the name multiple times over the seasons. We've been Dead, we've been Dobie, but we've gone back to TOBE, as in to the bitter end, because I think there's a lot of talk about the game at the moment, and I would like to think that we will be one of the last fellowships who ever play this game, if it comes to that. Which I hope it doesn't, and I think the updates lately in general have been really positive, and the team have been great lately. It's nice to see the winter servers and new players or old players coming back and kind of retrying the game, so that's quite a good experience as well, but I'm going to do that in a separate video. But for the sake of this one, so we are currently top. HONK, our kingdom partner, same as last season really, are second. You have Bear, which is another great team, in third. They don't have a partner in Arnor, I think, of any great strength at this second. So they've got Azagal there, who have got 411k. They came into this server willingly on their own. Fair play to them. I think they just wanted a lot of fighting, and it's going to be quite interesting for that. Then we get to review our fighting, I guess, and with the DK Kingdom again at some stage, I would think. And the last time we played DK, we got absolutely hammered. We probably weren't quite prepared for the level of activity and things that they had at the time. Be interesting to see how that goes this season. It's nice to see them enter this season, because if they manage to take the whole map in this server, they've done very well. So the DK Kingdom is in Erebor, and they're also farming pretty well. You have Lothlorien, which again is pretty full of big teams. So you have Wind, you have Odin, and I think you have Otter as well just underneath. So as a trio, I believe they are the biggest kingdom for production / affluence, whatever you want to call it at this point. We have a third fellowship in Dong. I'm going to pretend that's not saying what it is there and say that it's because of Big Ben being British and how much it dongs. So they've got 310k, so actually that might put us above what we got there, 2.9 and 3.1, so we've got 3.2. What's in Loft? 2.4 and 715. So we're just ahead. So it's pretty tight though, and actually the Erebor Kingdom may actually be better. 2.6. Yeah, so Erebor is actually the biggest affluent kingdom at this point with this third fellowship of Coffer. We also have a full Gondor, which has Salt in it. And it's a team that I've heard a lot about. I've never played, I think, to my knowledge, so that'd be quite interesting. So they've kind of been farming pretty hard. You also have Animal in there. And you also have BZKH, which are also in there. I think that's it. There's a small fellowship in Gondor. So Gondor's also full. Like I say, it's a really full server, to be honest. Then you get down to the first fellowship from Angmar, which is THEO. I believe Angmar was full when we started the server as well. So you've got Spod in Angmar, which is interesting because Spod were with Odin last season to a degree. They started that way, and then Otter took over and made them their kingdom partner. And I have definitely seen a recruitment poster which said Odin and Spod are recruiting. So I would assume, and I say this rightly or wrongly, there's a mini THEO as well. The Angmar and Loth are likely to be working together at some stage. That could be a bad assumption. Please let me know. So that's the kind of main ones. Then you have Linden, which was also pretty full, I think, before the start of the season. So they've got over 1 million. So looking forward to this. It looks like it's going to be very, very active. Commander levels wise, the top commander levels so far are 39. I have seen this guy's commanders before. He is pretty strong. He's done really well, to be fair, for what he has to get to this sort of level. I presume he's worked quite hard on making sure Scowls is his main person and probably been sweeping like the rest of us. Then you've got Tiber from Wind, who again, it's a pretty disgusting formation. Looks like he's going to be running the Gil, Sauron. Nice Gil too. Z11. It looks like he's going to be running this as his 4, so it's going to be 3 supports and Dane, which I like. Pretty disgusting formation though, so you can see why his levels are pretty high. This guy I fought a lot. He's pretty strong. Last time we fought DK, and then of course you've got Raven, who spreads his commanders out a little bit more, and then Atomic. I would be somewhere in amongst this, but I just don't like my commanders being part of it, so I actually withdrew. And I will go from that point into my own commander levels, because I think that's probably the easiest point to segue into. So I have my highest one is Dane, is level 39. He's just got there, and I don't think he'll get anywhere near 40 today. It'll probably be tomorrow, but I will be sweeping all day today because of the mechanics. Gandalf's just gone over 38, and then you've kind of got much of a muchness apart from Saruman, who's 38, Bjorn, who's 37. So there's a much of a muchness, kind of, mid-30s. Sauron I've hardly used. I don't really like using him for farming, but I've just started trying to level him up. And then you've got Gil and Gandalf the Grey is also being used as my tanks in these formations when I'm sending them out. At the moment, because there is nothing else to do, I am smashing into level 40 mobs with one troop on each of 3 damage dealers and getting some crushers on this main sort of tank formation. And I'm picking up nearly 80k for 20 stamina with pretty minimal losses, so I can't really complain about that. It just refreshes and you carry on. I don't know where he is. He's over here somewhere. I'll just recall him so I can do it again. But because of the way the mechanics work, even more so than before, there isn't really any tiles I can take. So if I go into my tiles, I have 1 ruined, and I have 3 11s, 11 10s, that nearly tripped me up, 49 9s, which are the old 150s, and I have 26 level 8s. Now, I don't see the point in dropping these 26 level 8s anymore for anything else. 1, because there's no level 10s, which are 200s around me anyway. And 2, all I'm going to be replacing them with is 150s, so I'd be losing out on ore and grain, and it doesn't really make much sense to me. I am locked at 91 tiles. Building-wise, I've done pretty well. I'll go into buildings afterwards, but until I get main hall 9, I can't get more tiles this way, so I can get 10 tiles for completing chapter 19. And then, really infuriatingly, because I will segue into the ring at this point, because this is probably the one thing that I found pretty disappointing about the new mechanics. I am a big believer in this game and how it sort of plays, and the changes, I think, in general have been quite positive. But the new ring, I'm not quite sure of, just because of how you get reputation points. And I think stifling people in progression behind something that you can't really control isn't the way to go about getting people to play your game as much as you'd like them to. That's just my personal opinion. I'll try and explain what I mean. So your ring now gets reputation, and there are different ways of increasing this reputation. You can do it through chapters. You can do it through your affluence ranking, which is based around what your affluence level is at the time. And it goes up the more affluence you have. And you get that every 8 hours, which is good. And you can also get 800 through tavern tips. That's increased. So I would guess it starts at 200. It must scale every day. I'm not sure where it scales to, but it's definitely scaled to a degree. So these are the 3 things that you can kind of control. You can't necessarily control chapters, and I will try and explain why. So on day 1, this was. So on day 1, everyone who was up near the top of the leaderboard to a bottleneck, and it's because you cannot go past ring level 20. It's physically impossible with the amount of reputation you can gain within the first day. So everyone was kind of sat there scratching around. We couldn't get to 4 formations because they've locked commander arts, which is now it is, so you couldn't get the 4 formation unlocked until you got to chapter 20, to ring level 20. So it just slowed progress, and you were having to take 130s and 150s with 3 commanders if you wanted to progress or use your stamina, or you could sweep. Now, call this selfish, but I'm not entirely sure that's the way to help the problem that they have, whereby they get complaints naturally that the smaller players don't get to the big tiles. When they get there, they're all gone because the bigger players have got them. So I would assume this mechanic is to try and stop that, because you have to hit with 3 formations in an army for longer. But the issue is, if you're a Kraken player, you are still able to hit with 3 formations in an army and still take 130s, 150s. You actually just end up taking more of them in the end because you use less stamina because you're only using 3 commanders instead of 4 to get to them. Just food for thought on that, please. So for a normal player who likes to play the game, or a whale who tries to compete with a Kraken, so every season, day 1, day 3, I try to compete with Raven as best as I can on the server, and anyone else who's a big player in the server. This mechanic has made it physically impossible for someone like at my level to be able to compete with that. So if you then scale it down, it's made it physically impossible for someone who is a Dolphin or a normal level player to compete with a whale, let alone a Kraken. I completely accept that it means that there's been some tiles left over for the smaller players to get 130s, 150s, but that's more through the fact that the larger players are dropping 130s and 150s because they can't get past the tile cap fast enough. So just to use the stamina more than anything else. So I get the principle that they're trying to slow the game down. completely understand. I would just probably, I don't know. For me, the answer is probably just throw more resource tiles in there. You just throw more 130s, 150s out there. People's general cap is stamina, so whether you're a Kraken, whale, dolphin, whatever you are, you only get the same amount of stamina every day. Yes, in the end, you can buy stam pots and you can increase that, but for the first few days, you are pretty much all at the same level of stamina. Just food for thought in the way they've done that. I'm not so sure locking the ring so people can't progress is the way forward. And coming back to my current situation, which is what I was just saying, there are players further down the leaderboard than what I am in my fellowship who have ring level 35, and I'm stuck at ring level 34 for another 8 hours. And that's probably where I'm going to come into the most important part of the video if you are playing as a fellowship and wanting to be competitive and help all of your players. And I appreciate I haven't even got to the map yet, but we're doing things a little bit differently because it kind of scales in. So I'll just boost these anyway, because you always have to make sure you donate when you can. That's kind of just a fact of life. So there are certain targets which allow you to get reputation. And this is where, again, you're making leadership make decisions which they shouldn't have to make based around a mechanic that's been put in. So we had a situation last night where we took a keep, but a lot of our players, to be fair to them, bring a lot of siege. So, and they siege a lot faster than others. Now, I have absolutely no problem with that, generally, because it's really helpful. You have players that are specified and they are great siegers. The problem is now with what the game's done, you've almost got to slow down their sieging ability to help other people in your fellowship, because you need to get this 2,000 siege for each keep that you hit to make sure you get. It's 800 rep, so it's quite a lot of rep for what you're trying to do. So, for example, if we take another keep today, which I believe we're going to try to later on, hence Nern setup, spoiler alert, we're going to have to allow people to self-manage themselves or manage them so that when they hit 2,000 siege, we have to let other players who perhaps haven't unlocked breakers yet, for example, to catch up, do their 2,000 siege. So we're having to impose a 10-minute sort of ban on siege while these players catch up so they can all hit this 2,000 and sort of increase their reputation for the ring so they can actually progress. Otherwise, it's just an opportunity that they won't have. And even though there will be more opportunities throughout the week, with the way the passes lock, and you have, in our case, 3 fellowships. A lot of teams in this now have 3 fellowships in a region, particularly in Rebuilding Glory. Who takes the keeps is actually really important, and to make sure you get that reputation point. So, 1, you have to make sure you hit anyway to get this 800 reputation from the Occupy. And 2, to get the 2,000 siege. So, if I think I finished on 1690 siege. If I'd have hit once more, I'd have obviously gone over 2,000. So for me, for example, I was one of those players, hence the rant pretty much, but it is a valid argument for people. I'm now locked at ring level 34 for another 8 hours, where players who were below me in the rankings are now past me and actually can get another 10 tiles in front of me because of the way that the mechanics work. I'm not entirely convinced that is the best way to appreciate good play in a game. Just my own personal opinion, and I hope they look at that and perhaps take some feedback on it and the way it works, because ultimately they've already slowed the game down quite significantly. I will go back to the ring in a second, because the ring is really important, and I think the new ring is pretty cool. I like the new skills, I just don't quite like what they've done with the reputation. But the map itself, so Rune is pretty empty. This is the DK Kingdom like we talked about, and this is the Odin, Otter, and Wind Kingdom. This is Angmar, obviously, and Linden, and Linden have took, I think they've only took 1 land so far, but it was Weathertop. I think that's all they've took so far, so I would assume they're just preparing at these passes. Arnor took this last night, which is pretty cool. I would assume that was just the smallest keep for them. We took 2 keeps yesterday. Honk took 1 and we took the other. DK did the same, so they took 2 yesterday. Gondor took 1 yesterday, I think. And then I don't think there's many people in Rohan, so no one's took anything from Rohan yet. So there's been some keeps taken. That was day 3, which again is quite interesting. But again, I know we talked about it a little bit last season. These passes being locked at server progression 4 basically means, and the internal ones across being locked at 8 or 6 in some cases, basically means that we now have chapter progression whereby for the next 36, 37 hours, we can't get to any more tiles. All we can really do is hit mobs. We can't fight each other if we wanted to. We can't fight opponents if we wanted to. We can't progress into any other land. All we can really do is take these internal keeps. And to be perfectly honest, within the 48 hours, I would expect all this area here to be red, just because of the way it works and how people have literally got nothing else to do. So the map's going to change, I think, quite significantly. I'm really excited about this server for the actual gameplay. Once we get into it and it's sort of stopped the slowdown a little bit, I think it's going to be a really active, really fun server, which, if there's not a lot of Diplo involved, I think it could be really fun to the last day. So I'm looking forward to that side of it. But for now, people are just kind of sat around. So all we can really do is sweep. I will be able to take a couple more tiles if I can find them, because there's not many left now anyway. It wouldn't in about 8 hours time when I get to ring level 35. So that's kind of where that's at. I will very quickly show you the ring, because I would like to do a video on this at some point, just the ring itself, because I think it's pretty cool now. So instead of the old school ring where it's like a spider diagram, I guess is probably what you'd be, it comes off into different trees. It's now very much you have to press through the progressions, which I'm fine with. You know, this time control is quite useful. Good for free-to-play as well, so that's good. You get clairvoyance, which is really important for tiles early on, which you get at ring level. I think you had to unlock that at about 6, I think, or it might have been one of the first ones you unlock at 5. Invigoration is always handy, as we've seen before. And then this is where you can basically construct a second quarter, so you have to make a decision. In my case, I went for elves, so I could try and get some from Gil. And then you can also unlock quarters to level 5, which means you can train tier 2 troops. So they have locked behind the ring as well your ability to increase certain building structures, which again is fine, and it kind of, you know, it segues through I would assume some of this will change at some stage. But instead of you being able to upgrade your ring every few levels, you now have to do it within this ring tree. And you only get 5 tiles for the first one, whereas I think the old one used to be 10. You get to increase to 3 formations in an army around ring level 5, which is quite handy. It's quite early on still, so I have no issue with that. They've got this cool new skill called XP Switch, which I haven't used yet because it's this whole 5 ability points. But say if I can see a use for this, but I wouldn't necessarily do it at this stage. I might do it a little bit further down the line. If tomorrow, for example, I've got nothing else to do and Dane and everyone's at ring level 40, and so is Gandalf the White and everyone else, because I don't really like leveling up Sauron in this way, I might use this to switch their stamina and then just put Sauron at level 40 and then he's done out the way. My other option with this is I could use it for Gil, because I only ever use Gil for tiles, so I could then switch Sauron in and that would be fine. So I think that's quite cool. You can now... sorry, that's quarter construction. That is only to allow it to level 5. Diplomacy allows you to add another quarter, which means around ring level 8, I think it was, you can unlock your second one, which was elves, which makes some sense. You've still got conversion in there. I don't think anyone's used that I know of yet. They've kind of restricted it now, so you only get half the mob rather than all. But you only use 5 points, whereas you used to use 10. I don't know why they changed that, but so I could get a level 40 mob, for example. So I don't know. There's probably use in there, but at the moment, all the mobs around me are alchemists, which I suppose I could use 5 points and get some decent siege. Might be worthwhile, I suppose, in that way. You get gather still around, I think that was ring 8-ish, maybe. No, a little bit more than that. Ring 12, ring 10, something like that. I'd have to remember and go through. But yeah, around ring level 10, you still get gather, so that was handy. The only issue with gather now is that they have stopped your ability to gather off someone else's tiles until you're at ring level 35. And I think that's a bit of a disappointing change. I get it, because it allows smaller players to get resources a lot faster than what they probably should do, but it also allows them to keep up. So I would probably have left that as it was, where you could just gather off anyone's tile. I thought that was a great change, to be honest, but by the time you get into ring level 35, you've probably got a tile that you want to gather off anyway. So I don't know, it doesn't really make much sense to sort of change that. You only get a fort at ring level 12, I think it was, maybe even 15, so you can't really move around before that. You get your second dominance, which is another 5, so even though you've only got to level 20 ring, which you're locked at for a day, you only get another 5 points. Then when you get to ring 25, which again you can be locked behind, you get another 5 territories. So progression's a lot slower, and this is where, like I say, you can add that sort of extra 1. Some of the others stayed the same. This is an extra 100 troops you can have in your army. I would probably guess... I'm not sure if this is on everyone's. I'd like to know that, actually. Or whether this is just Mordor's unique skill. So we get 20% ability point recovery rate a little bit faster. Workshops are actually a lot better now, which is nice. So they're definitely worth using. I need to do something else on that. I'm just conscious I don't want to make this too long. They've left this in, which I think is a good thing, where you can use 10 ability points and basically long march a fort to somewhere, which is quite handy. And then at ring level 30, you unlock another 5 tiles, and at 35, you unlock 10 tiles. So this is what I mean where I'm behind, only because I can't physically fill that 145. And I'll be able to unlock coordinated gathering and things like that soon. But I do like the new style of ring. I think, all these dominance ones, you start getting more territories as you go through to 40 and 50, so that's quite nice. It's just they've slowed it down quite significantly. Nice to be able to get your own resources up, but you no longer have the ability to put 10 points in and increase whichever one. It's just a flat across the board. So it's quite interesting. I mean, this levy one, I don't know why you would necessarily do that unless you're absolutely desperate. So if I work that out now, I'm not sure in a position, unless you're really stuck for resources, why you do this, because 5 gathers would be way more than 2 hours of one resource. Unless it's actually, in fairness, actually, no, that's not that bad, because if it's all lands, which I will do when I get there, then yes, that is actually really good for 5 ability points, and it's way better than gather. So that'll be interesting. Emergency construction is reduce the construction time of one structure on the map by 30%, up to 2 hours reduction. I'm really interested in this because I want to know if you can use this on Fellowship Fortresses. And if you can, it could be crazy at how quick you could knock up a Fellowship Fortress and you remove the... So it's 30%, but if you can get it across by a lot of different people, you could probably get a Fell Fort up in 4 hours, I would guess. Maybe a little bit less. So I think that's quite interesting. So the ring tree itself has made some pretty cool changes. I'm just not a fan of how it's locked behind. I know I've said that a few times now, but it is what it is, I suppose. As for buildings-wise, where are we at with buildings? So if I just go into my buildings, I will just very quickly put some troops on here. Important that I remember to actually put one of each. So all I do is put one of each of the tier 1s on there. You see I'm ticking these down. I have got tier 2s for if I want to try and take a tile. I'll go into tiles in a moment. Not that there's really any tiles left for me to take at this second. And then basically every now and again, I'm just adding probably 800 crushers or so, because I lose about 200 crushers a fight. So if I do that, that'll be them set for the next sort of 6 or 7 by the time it's come through the apothecary. So if I just go into my buildings, I have got main hall 8, which is good for this time. I haven't really upgraded these a lot yet. And what I've been trying to do with my buildings, and this was kind of the reason why I started this video in second place, whether I'm still there or not is a different thing, is you get territory affluence, which is based around, it does tell you, which is quite good, which tiles you get and how much it works. So getting 11s is probably worth it for 8s because you're gaining quite a significant chunk. Whereas I wouldn't necessarily say 10s to 11s is significant, but 8 to 11 is pretty significant. You also get that for buildings, and different buildings give different amounts. So I've kind of focused more on my buildings because there isn't many tiles, and it tells you how it changes. So it gives you an extra 15. So I've been trying to focus my buildings on ones which give a little bit more. So 60 to 70 is quite decent. This is quite a low stat, so it's worth me upgrading that for the extra affluence. I'm trying to work towards getting this, but that's more for a chapter progression. Again, that's only 20, but it's a small amount. So you can increase your affluence quite nicely. This one's a really bad one, in my opinion, because you're literally getting 20 affluence for it. And your resource centers, I think you get a little bit for that as well, which are quite good. 25 for a small amount, but the best ones I've found are your quarters. And your quarters tend to be quite low, but you get 100 roughly, plus some extra resources. So you get 100 affluence for quarters. That's whether it's level 1 or not. Obviously, we're locked into orcs. I went to elf second. Of course, I went to dwarves third because I do want to start using dwarves at some point. I'm going to start training tier 2 dwarves at some stage soon. It's just their HP and defense is a little bit lower than crushers, so I'm just using crushers for now. Partly because I'm not really running out of resources, and then I've unlocked Uruk quarters just for the siege of breakers. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. Time out of time is really good, like I say. So I could just, if I just take this down by 10 minutes, time out of time control is really good. So that's now done, just like that. I got half an hour 3 then to speed up for nothing. So just to sort of look at the building. So I have got, like I say, main all 8. Barracks is good, but 16. I would think from a buildings point of view, I'm quite far in front. So that's kind of that. I don't really want to go too far into it at this stage because there isn't really a lot else to say unless I really go into things like the ring and the skill tree and that kind of stuff. So I'm looking forward to getting past this initial stage. It is frustrating now for players, I'll be honest, to sit behind the passes until chapter progression 4. So like I say, you are locked behind these. These are all timed. So this was 24 hours. This was 24 hours. This was 24 hours. This one's 48 hours. It's already complete on the server because everyone's got nothing else to do but hit mobs. Not sure how long this one was, but I think it's quite a long one. So we're looking forward to this being done so we can actually get into the centre so we can get some more tiles more than anything else. Be interested to see where people are at with that by then. I'll probably have to go back to start taking 60s and 90s by that point because there'll be nothing else around. And in the meantime, all day, I will literally just be sweeping mobs like so. So that's kind of everything for now. I will just touch very quickly because I only showed the top 5. I'll go through the top 50 of personal affluence because it's a bit unfair to only go through the top 5. And there is a great mix from all the different fellowships, to be honest. I would expect over the next few days you will see more bear in this list than you will other people. Mainly because they have spawned in a region where there isn't as many players, so that will help them. But as a general rule, looks to be a really, really, really good server. I am happy with the way the game's progressing. I just hope that they kind of just tweak the reputation system a little bit because I don't think it's quite what I'd like to do. I've just remembered I haven't done that, which I said I would. So hang on. I will also very quickly go through this. And this is my server progression from start to finish. And I'll try and sort of tell you about the whole thing. So really foolishly, before the season started, I knew we were starting with orcs. And I have got an R4 kind of unascended gore bag, right? And I kind of thought with him having a bit of a heal and a way of increasing orc defense in 3 different formations, I thought he was going to be really useful. The sad fact of the matter was my gore bag, probably because he's only R4, was not majorly useful. So that was the first tile that we tried to take with 2. In comparison to, say, the Gandalf formation, I mean, again, I suppose Gandalf lost some troops too. Maybe gore bag was more useful than I gave him credit for. But so that was that kind of the first tile, which was a level 3 that we went for. He then really disappointed me with a level 4 tile. and I get that this isn't the best of formations. So what I always try and do when I'm leveling early, this is just a small tip, is I try and use my C and D and B team people. If you have them, great, even if they respect 3 or 4, the damage dealers. Try and use those so you can save your main stamina of your army, and then you filter your mains in over a period of time. So this is kind of my B team that I started trying to level on level 4s. Gandalf the Grey's really nice, actually, as a tank early on still as farming. Then you have Gorbag again. I thought, come on, let's give you another go, Gorbag. And he was just still basically giving troops away for fun. And I think that was the point where I actually gave up on him. He might now be level 10 if I'm lucky, because I think I've used him to sweep a couple of mobs. We then moved on to level 5s, and this is pretty reasonable. So again, this was using... I think I used half troops on a couple of these. I tried to do the 1-troop farming method once I can get it right. But you just don't want to fail tiles earlier on. So this was quite a nice result, really. I don't mind throwing away tier 1 troops so much. Then we moved on to level 6s. And again, this is kind of just a nice, easy progression. Trying to use the buff where you can for... I've got mounted against small units. So these guys got some extra damage in there, which is quite nice. Just remember, it doesn't have to be your whole formation that does that. It will still give you the buff individually over each particular one during the mechanic, which is quite nice. So I thought that was an okay result. That was level 6s. This was also a level 6, which again worked out quite nice. In fact, that might actually be the same tile. Maybe I just didn't click further down. Then we had level 7s. And then we went for the different kind of counter buff. So we countered with small units versus the large trolls. And this was, again, quite a nice result. You know, this is a level 7 land. This is a 90 tile. With 3 sort of commanders, and by this point we'd got 2 gear slots before this fight, I think, on a lot of them, because they were on 14, so you don't get the 3rd gear slot until then. Whatever I tried to do, I tried to get, when it's just 1 gear slot, as much damage as possible, and if I can make a set with 2, great. If not, I'm just trying to then stack attack with the second one with these guys, and stack defense with whatever my tank is. I think this is another sort of the old 90 tile, really, whereby I was okay with this. Again, this was 1 troop in with 2 of them, and Gandalf just about pulled through, which was quite nice. Hergon's pretty hard on tiles. I don't really know why I took that on, but we did take it at the second attempt, mainly because the 2 damage dealers refresh during the 1 minute, and then you get enough health to be able to do that. Then we started taking 8s with 3 people, and this is where I think the game becomes hard for a lot of players. So even, I've got some decent gear, but the game becomes hard for me at this stage, mainly because you're still looking at sort of tier 1, maybe a little bit of tier 2 troops filtered in. Yes, you can try the counter buff. So on these, I did 1 troop this, I think, or maybe I did have some troops on there. Let's just check it out. No, I did have some troops on there, so... I did use some troops there. That's still a good result, I would say, for this stage with 3. Normally, I would only try and take 1 to 2 of these for chapter progression, maybe 3 if I had to, before I unlock the 4th slot for formations in an army. With that now being locked for the entirety of the first day, pretty much impossible to do. You have to do this a lot more, so it's a lot more wasteful. Then we had the same sort of thing again. I tried with tier 1 orcs again and some tier 2s, which were nice. When you start using tier 2 troops on your tank, it's quite nice. So this is okay versus trolls. I find I ended up having that matchup a lot. And then we introduced Gale, and the results just got a lot better, as you could probably imagine, really, with the way it works. So we started getting results like this from level 8s. We did fail some tiles, though, as well. And again, this absolutely slapped me. I couldn't believe how much that actually slapped me. And I would assume it's because I've used tier 1 elves on Gale, and they've died really fast. Pretty squishy. And whatever unit defense I did got pummeled by these 2. So, oh, and of course, counter buff from Zegrid's skill. He deals more damage due to the horses. So that was kind of my own fault, really, but I got slapped by that tile. We did start taking, this is the equivalent of the old 150s. This is the first one I took, I think, and this was, again, using the counter buff, but with 3 formations. It wasn't the worst result in the world, considering where we're at with things. This is quite a nice army to hit. So that was good. But we had to carry on going like that. And it was only really the day after. So these were kind of the average results where you're trying to take stuff. So you're losing a lot more troops than what you'd used to. And then when you move into 4 comms, because your levels are higher anyway, you lose a lot less. This is a really nice tile army to hit, by the way, if you get a chance. So we started using Gil and the Elves by this point, and results just dramatically changed for us. I could go to 1 troop farming pretty soon after that. This was my first 200, which again I was okay with. Using tier 1s in the main. Even on the tank, tier 1s are quite nice against these sort of tiles. There's just not enough of them for people to get hold of early on, really. This was even against the counter buff, so I was okay with that. I thought that was a pretty good result. I did fail a tile. I was gutted about this. This was the only 200 grain. I do end up owning it, but I did fail it. Not by a lot either, but these two are pretty hard armies to get through. Saruman always hits hard. And then Lotr tanking, bless him. And the same really with Sestaro and even Gothmog getting to 11k damage. Kamal, there's a lot of damage in there which I couldn't get through. So sadly failed, but then I did take that tile afterwards. I just like to show that the failures are there as well. No one's first day is sort of perfect, and then we started getting a lot of results like this. And like I say, from there you can kind of fly through 1 troop farming if you really need to. This was a good sort of 200 tile. Again, some nice armies to hit. When there's not much damage in the formation, you can sort of chew through quite nice, even if one of them did have. And this is the first 11 tile, which was a 230 in effect. And again, the Thorin tiles are quite nice to hit. There's only Lego really in here that does any damage. And then the Gandalf one, I think I got pummeled a bit by Gandalf himself with some sense, and a tiny little bit as well from Aladdin of all people. So that was, or Aladdin, not Aladdin. Start talking about Prince Ali. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. So at the moment, I'm just sweeping. Like I say, we're doing this. We're not taking great losses sweeping, but we're getting a lot of XP. And that is kind of where we're at with the season. Sorry that was longer than I thought it was going to be. I will try and do another one probably after the passes unlock on day 5 it will be, I suppose. And then we'll sort of go from there. But I hope they change the reputation mechanic just slightly. I think it needs a small tweak. But if you are starting a server, make sure your fellowship is organised enough to be able to get all of your team those reputation points from Siege in particular and from occupying the keeps, as it's really important for actually progressing through. And on that note, as always with these things, if in doubt, always follow your nose.